Hello everybody, this is Joni, and believe it or not, I made it back to be able to talk to you guys again, and I must say that I'm very happy to be back. And for a while I was wondering what in the world was going to happen down there, because it was getting pretty anxious there for a while, but I was feeling fine, and I want to thank you guys for all of your prayers. And it seems like I'm keeping you all on your toes with your prayers and keeping you very, very busy, and I'm sorry for that, but I do thank you for all of your prayers and your support, and support for Tanya, because she and my son Chris, they were pretty well upset, and Sophie, she was upset too. So the family were all upset because Mom was sick, and they're not used to Mom getting this sick. So it was sort of nasty there for a while. But I've been feeling fine, and like I said, you know, when I made my last video, I was feeling great, and I was up doing things, and I went ahead and I told the kids, I said, well, I haven't been able to have any Christmas so far, and I said, I can't help it if people think I've lost my mind. I said, I'm going to turn all my lights on, and I'm going to enjoy seeing my Christmas trees and looking at all of my ornaments and my decorations that I did have up. They weren't that much, but they were enough to where I could enjoy them. So I would turn my lights on every night and turn them off about 4 o'clock in the morning. I really didn't care, and I was just having a good time. And I woke up, no, I wasn't asleep. I was watching videos one night, and I put my, I'll show you my hand. I don't know if you can really see it, but it looks nice and doozy. It's all purple and green, and I'm still having my other thing on my hand. But I was watching videos in my recliner in my bedroom, and I put my hand up to my nose, and I thought, oh my goodness, my nose really feels oily. I don't know why my skin is getting so oily here lately. And so I had some Clinique wipes that's in my top nightstand drawer. So I just reached over and got a hold of the drawer, opened it, and got a wipe out. And I started wiping my nose and wiping my face here. And I went inside my ear here. And I went over and started wiping this side. Well, when I started wiping this side of my face, it started feeling really hot. I don't mean just warm to the touch. It felt hot, like I had been out in the sun and gotten a horrific sunburn. And so I went ahead and washed that ear too. And I thought, what in the world is going on with this crazy things? And I'm looking at the wrong place. I've been trying to look straight into the camera, and I asked Tanya, I said, I am not looking at these people in the eye like I like to, because when I'm speaking with someone, I always speak and look directly in their eye at them. And she said, Mom, she said, you have to look at this little spot over here, a little hole on the camera. And I said, oh, okay, no wonder I'm looking funny then, because I was just looking straight in at my phone, because that's what I'm filming with. But anyway, getting back to the heat on my face, it started getting worse and worse and worse. And I know by this time, because about the last 10 years, now people may think I'm completely lost my mind, but really I haven't. And that's what Tanya told the doctor. She said she really hasn't lost her mind. But for about the last 10 years, I have gotten to the place, I feel like I got a fuzz or something on the tip of my nose. I was at the place that I could not hold the telephone to my left ear. Now, I could my right ear, fine, no problems. But my left ear, there was just no doing it, because my skin would start getting very hot, my ear would start getting hot, and my blood pressure would start going up. Now, I don't know what caused it, But it stayed like that for probably about 5 years. So in the meantime, the beginning of this process, I bought a phone that had speakers on it that had speakers that were good enough that I could get back away from the phone and still have a conversation. Didn't have to stay up close to it. And so I used my speaker phones for a long, long, long time, well, years in fact. And so I didn't pay any more attention to it. But then I started noticing, and you all may have noticed, I wear a lot of dangle earrings. I'm sure you know that. But my dangle earrings were getting to where this one would stick out a bit. It wouldn't hang down like this one. It would hang out sort of like this, and I had to tell Tanya, I'd say, my ear is so swollen that it won't even allow my earrings to hang down like they're supposed to. And she looked at me and she went, well, I don't understand that. And then I noticed that one of my videos that I made one day, I was looking at my video when I was getting ready to put it up, and I noticed that that left eye was really slow in closing. It went just, I can't do it, but it closed like it was so lazy it couldn't move. And my other one was just snapping away like it's supposed to when you blink. But the other one on my left one, it wasn't. And by this time I started noticing that I was having a swelling on both, on this entire, from just halfway over on the left side. The whole face and head was swelling. So I thought, I've had several really pretty hard licks on my back of my head, hits to the back of my head, because I was in 2 car accidents, and both of them, one of them I was sitting parked at the foot of a bridge in town, in the middle of town, getting ready to make a left-hand turn. I had my foot on the brake and my signal lights on. And a guy was coming across the bridge in a truck, and he was going to try to outrun all the traffic on his side. So he passed them, and he knew he couldn't make it, but I didn't. I didn't even see him coming. I was the only car on my side of the road, on my lane, and I was, like I said, I was getting ready to make a left-hand turn. And the next thing I heard was this big, thunderous crash, and I thought, oh my goodness, somebody has been in a horrible accident. Didn't realize it was me, because he hit the back of my car doing almost 50 miles an hour. And I'm sitting there, I was in a little Celica. I loved my Celica. I dearly loved it, and I still would love it today. But my head started hurting so badly. And there's someone, when I realize what's going on, someone is knocking on the side of my window. And I look up in the mirror and I see this truck behind me, and I thought, you silly Willie, you're the one that was hit. Somebody's hit you. And so I reach over and start rolling my window down, and he says, ma'am, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. I didn't hurt your car at all. And I looked at him, and I'm afraid I wasn't very nice to him. I said, you didn't hurt my car when my head is killing me, because my head felt like it was about 2 times the size it should be. And it felt like someone had taken a sledgehammer and hit me in the head with it. I said, the way my head is hurting, and then you saying you didn't hurt my car, I said, I can't even start to imagine that. Well, I didn't realize that I had been lying back in my seat, that he had broken my seat in 2 places, in the metal had been broken into 2 places in the back of my seat that I was sitting in. And I didn't realize that I was lying prone, because I was up out of there, and I just thought I'd been sitting straight. I got out of that car and I walked around, not knowing anything was going on. Walked around to the back of my car, and there the trunk of it was sprung a little bit, but wasn't really that much. It was about 1 inch. And I said, do you see my trunk? I said, that looks to me like it's been hurt. And I said, and look at the antifreeze running out of your truck under my car. The antifreeze was running completely out of his truck. And his truck looked like an accordion that had been just flattened. And I said, forget it. And they were calling the police by this time, the bypassers that were going by. And so there were police on the scene. And I went back and sat down in my car. I didn't realize that I had to go back in my seat again because it wasn't even up. The next thing, I passed out. The next thing I realized was I was being carried out of my car on a stretcher, and they were putting the neck braces on me as they went. And no, she put the neck brace. That's what it was. She put the neck brace. She pushed my seat and held it. And a lady put a neck brace. She got in my back seat and put the neck brace on me. Then they put me on a stretcher and took me to the with the ambulance, blaring its lights and everything, to the hospital. So anyway, I get up there and I have to stay 12 hours before they can even get an x-ray and a whole lot of hoopla. But anyway, nothing ended up with that. I didn't sue the man. I didn't do anything about it. I just let it go. And people even saw it that was on a bus, and they were telling my niece, she worked where I was on my way back to the office, and she worked where I did, and they told her, they said, "Did you hear about that accident that was on that bridge the other day?" And she said, "Yes." She said, "That was my aunt that was in that." And they said, "Oh, we saw that," and said that man was flying and when he hit her. And so that was one of the hits that I got on the back of my head. Then one day Sophie was coming out of Tanya's front door, and you have to step down about a step from her front door to her porch. And Sophie was directly in front of me, and she was little. She was probably about 5 or 6, something like that. And I was right behind her, and I was holding the screen door open for her. And she stopped to look at an ant, as only a child would do. When there's someone directly behind you and they're coming, they don't know what you're doing. And when she stopped to look at that ant, I just went, rather to keep from hitting her, I twisted myself around and threw myself until I landed off of Tanya's porch. And then I went flying, and my head was the last thing to hit. And when it came down, it was just like you're just falling like that, and then this is the last thing to hit. And I heard my head go whack, and I thought, oh, that was a really hard hit. So we had x-rays, but there was nothing, no damage done, so I was supposedly fine. But all of these hits, then my ex-daughter-in-law, we were in an accident together, and her shoulder came up under my chin right here. We were in the back seat. We just started removing all of the trees and everything on this property that we have. We have 2 acres here, and we had come down to start our house. And so we had gone to eat lunch, and we were on our way back. And this woman tried to cross 3 lanes of traffic, oncoming traffic, and we were in the left lane getting ready to turn off. And she had to cross 3 lanes. So if she had gotten past us, she would have had to have crossed 2 more to get to the side where she was wanting to go. So needless to say, she didn't get past us because we were passing her as she was pulled into the median, and she pulled in, and she hit us in the side. And she rocked the car over and then hit us again. She tried to move again and hit us again. And the first time she knocked me, and my daughter-in-law hit me in the up under here with her shoulder, and they said it was like a line blocker. You can say, how can you laugh at all this? There's no need in doing anything else. There's nothing but laughing to do about it. So anyway, I had a very sore neck for a long time and a head. So with all of these hits, I can understand I'm probably having a lot of myofascial, I would say, growing inside my head there. And it's causing problems in that left side because most of the hits have been on my left side. But got down there, like I was telling you. So I waited 3 hours before I called Tanya, and when I started getting so hot, and my blood pressure was 100 and, oh, I've got it written down because I can't remember half of the time what it is. And I can't wear my glasses again because it starts my head getting hot again. 185 over 112 when I first after just washing it with the little thing. And I sat there and waited for 3 hours. And of course I took my blood pressure pills like I was supposed to and everything. Drank my water and tried to get my mind on other things and everything. But after 3 hours had come and gone and it was still the same, I just called Tanya and I said, I'm having blood pressure problems. I think maybe you better come up. So she came up and she looked at me and she said, you got to go to the ER. She said, you can't stay here. And I said, but I don't want to go. And she said, well, you don't not want to go, but you have to. So she and her husband got me in the car and they took me to the ER. And I got down there and I was afraid. See, I can't take the flu shot. I was afraid it's going to get the flu and no telling what all is going around, you know, how those emergency rooms are. So we go in and we sit down back as far as we can away from other people. And she fills all of the paperwork out for me and everything and talks to the nurses and everything. I'm sure she told them what all, you know, about the blood pressure and everything. And so I didn't sit there probably over 5 minutes or so because that's a really high blood pressure. And so they called me back there and they started performing tests on me right away. And they said, I think that probably you just better get used to the idea of staying. And I said, oh, well, I really want to go back home because I don't like to stay in hospitals. And they said, well, with all the problems that you're having, I figure that you will be staying. And so they went ahead and continued doing x-rays and lab work and all such things as that. And then they took me back into the examining room and the doctor examined me and he said, we might as well just get ready for you to stay. He said, because I'm going to ask that they admit you. And he said, I'm filling the papers out. And I said, and he said, now, we have always had private rooms. He said, but since that hurricane hit down here, they have transferred a lot of their people over here. So we've had to start doubling up in our rooms. So right now we don't have a private room. Well, I thought, oh, just what I always needed. To be put into a room with someone that I don't know from Adam. And I don't know what they have and what I could catch from that. And my mind starts working overtime again because I'm a silly person sometimes. I really am. And so anyway, Tanya said, Mom, she said, if you have to stay, you have to stay, whether it's private or semi-private. And I looked at the doctor, and by this time it's around 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm saying, I think I might go home, and I'm really serious. I'm dead serious. I want to go home. And he looked at me and he said, well, I'm going to tell you. He said, you will have to sign release forms. And of course I knew that already because I had been through that before with my father. And I think I'm a lot like Daddy was. And he said, so you would be going against my advice. He said, because I'm just going to be truthful with you. He said, you could die. He said, not only is your blood pressure as high as it is, he said, but you are not having enough, you're not getting enough oxygen. He said, your oxygen is in the mid-80s. And he said, so that is not good. And I said, well, it's been running in the mid-80s for several years. And he looked at me like I had slapped him. He really did. And he said, you've been having your blood pressure, your oxygen level in the 80s? And I said, yes. And Tanya looked at him and she said, she's telling the truth. She said her oxygen has been running low. And I said, and she's an RN, so she knows what she's talking about. And she just grinned like, Mom, you don't have to say that. But I think that they take you more seriously if you have someone along with you that knows what's going on. And I've always been told that she is an excellent nurse, and that I've been told by two excellent doctors that she's the best nurse they've ever worked with. So she knows what she's talking about when she says something. So I tend to listen to what she says, but sometimes a semi-private room was sort of overruling her advice. But anyway, I looked and he said, you should never be running around with oxygen in the 80s. He said, you should be in the upper 90s to 100. And so I said, well, that's what I've been. And he said, are you not short-winded? Don't you get tired and not able to breathe well? And I said, no, I've always gotten along just fine breathing like I am now. And I said, I don't get tired or short-winded when I get up and run, or not run, because I don't do any running, let's face it. But if I had to, I could run a short distance, but I'd be short-winded. But I can walk quite briskly and not get short-winded. Because I remember one time I had been sick and had been in bed, and I got up and went shopping with Tanya, and we were just walking in the store, and she tends to walk fast. And I was just walking along with her, just not paying a bit of attention to it, and I thought, good grief, young lady, do you realize you're keeping right up with your daughter and you're not even short-winded? And I told her, I said, I'm not even short-winded after being in bed as long as I've been. So I was very pleased about that, and I told him. And he just sort of looked at me like, I don't understand this woman. And I said, well, you're going to have to realize you got someone that's a little bit different than the normal person. I said, one of my better doctors told me, he did his training at Johns Hopkins. And he told me, he said, I have never had a patient like you in my life. He said, when you come in and start giving me all of your symptoms, he said, I never think what I would do for my normal patient. He said, I start thinking, okay, what is the most weird, far out thing that I could ever think about diagnosing her with, or even doing a study to see if she does have this. So he said, I look at you in a totally different light than I do any of my other patients. And I told him that. And I said, so you're going to have to start looking on the outer parameters of things if you want to find out what's wrong with me. So I told him about my head, and he looked at me like, that's when Tanya said, she really isn't out of her mind. Because this is actually true. She has had these problems. And they look at you like, if you talk on a phone and it causes your blood pressure to go up, you're a little bit nuts, in other words. And I said, I don't know what it was. I said, but I just learned that if I got off the phone, my blood pressure would go back down. Change ears is what I meant. Not get off the phone, but just change the ear. And I could talk all I wanted to on my right ear, but not my left one. And I told him about the earring, and then the eye coming down slower, and the left side being swollen. And I'm sure he could see right then that the left side of my face was swollen. And I would imagine that several of you, if you're being very observant, when you're watching the video, you will notice that the left side of my face swells. And you may have even seen that one eye. There's one other girl, I'm not going to name who it is, but I saw her, and she had that left eye that was coming down slower. And I told Tanya, I said, she has the same eye, just like mine. It drags when it closes. And I said, I should contact her and see if she knows what's wrong with hers, because I can't find out what was going on with mine. But anyway, 3 o'clock came. And he said, you may die when you walk out the door. He said, I'm going to tell you the plain truth. He said, I wouldn't leave the hospital if I were you under any circumstances. And Tanya looks at me, and she looked really worried. And she said, Mom, she said, I wouldn't leave if I were you. She said, I'd go ahead and check in. I said, okay, I'm going to tell you. And I looked at him, and I said, I'm going to tell you. I said, I'm going to go up there. And I said, it depends on what's waiting in that room. I said, if it is someone that is something that is very, very ill and it's going to make me a total nervous wreck, or if it's someone that has something that I might possibly catch, or if it's someone that's not got all their marbles, I said, I will be walking out and I will be signing my papers. I said, my father walked out and we picked him up on the corner, and when I said that, he looked at me like, oh my goodness, so she's got somebody else in her family has done this. And I said, yeah, he did. He walked out and signed his papers because he was an attorney. He knew what he could do. And he walked out and just signed the papers, and we picked him up on the corner. He was waiting on the corner. He didn't even wait at the hospital. He walked to the corner. And so I said, okay, I will go up there and I will give it a try, but we will see what happens. And so they start me up the step, not up the steps, but up the elevator in the wheelchair. And Tanya and her husband were with me. And by this time, she had called my son, and he is keep me posted, call me every time you know what's going on. And so I got upstairs, and as we were starting past the nurse's station, she said, you have a private room, and it's the biggest private room in the hospital. And I thought, thank you, Lord, thank you, I needed that. So they took us back to the room, and it was really a nice room. And I got that, and it was, I guess, the only one that was available at that particular minute. And I don't know if they had just gotten it cleaned up, or if the good Lord had been saving that room for me. I don't know what happened, but I got it. And so they put me in there, and Tanya continued staying with me. And her husband, I think he had to work the following day. Yeah, so he left to go home, and she stayed. And then my son came up the next day and stayed with me all that day, and my granddaughter. And then they left that evening, and Tanya came back and stayed that night with me. But during all of that time, they were bombarding me with one test right after the other, and they took me downstairs to nuclear medicine. This would only happen to me. It wouldn't happen to the normal people. I'm abnormal. But she took me down, and there was this huge hose, nuclear medicine, I believe is what they called it. They were going to they were checking me for blood clots in my lungs. They were checking my brain to see if my brain had something wrong with it. They were taking x-rays of it. They took x-rays of other things in my body. I can't remember what it was. Anyway, there were so many tests that I just lost track of them. And they took me downstairs, and they had this huge hose about this big around. And then it had a nozzle on it that was even bigger than that. And she said, okay, she said, I'm going to position you on the table, and then I want you to put this into your mouth and hold it until I tell you you can breathe. So I thought, if I can get that thing in my mouth as big as it is, I'll be doing well. So I put it in there, and she said, now go ahead and breathe until I get everything fixed. So I went ahead and was breathing. And she said, now when I tell you to hold your breath, you hold your breath until I say you can breathe. I said, okay. Only I went, okay, you know, like that, because I couldn't talk, because I already had it in here, and I was holding it like this so that the machine was down here. I was holding over top of it like this. And she said, okay, hold your breath. So I took a big deep breath, and I'm holding my 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 breath. And I thought, good grief, how long do you have to hold your breath? And finally, I had held it. I was swallowing, trying to hold my breath longer. And she finally, she said, started walking up toward the table, and she said, you can breathe a little bit. And I said, you mean I can breathe? And she said, oh, you could have breathed all along. And I said, I didn't know. I said, I thought you said just hold your breath. And she said, Oh, no, she said you were supposed to be breathing all through the test. She didn't tell me to breathe all through it. She said, hold this until I tell you you can breathe. And she never did say you can breathe now. And this was a nuclear medicine they were putting into my lungs to see if I had any clots in my lungs, because I'd had that blood clot in my leg. And they were afraid that maybe I had had a spin-off or something. And so there was that thing. So she said, just go ahead and breathe normally about the next 2 minutes. So I was able to breathe normally, and I was going, like that. In other words, I need to breathe. I can't keep continuing this. And she must have heard me making those moaning sounds, and she said, well, you can breathe a little. And I said, oh. So anyway, I hope that those tests turned out. They acted like they did. Anyway, I didn't have any blood clots in my lungs, thank the good Lord. And so then they were doing one, and they had something was really white, big tray. It looked like trays almost, but they would fold up beside you in different positions. And I had to hold my hands up over top of my head as far as I could and everything. And taking deep, deep breaths every so often with that. And it was unbelievable. But that thing of not being able to breathe, I bet I went for 2 minutes without taking a breath. Because when I'm told to do something and I'm in the hospital, I'm going to give it everything I've got to try to do the testing right so I don't have to do it over. So I don't know how it turned out, but it must have turned out okay. And then they had another big thing, like I was telling you, and it looked like geometric designs all over it. And you had to put your arms a certain way on those, but you were still lying down. And all of that going on. And they finally got that one through, and that one took for a good while. And then they came in, they were waiting, they were going to do a really big EKG. And I had EKGs, several. I had one when I had the lithotripsy, and then I had another one, but they said they wanted one that was bigger than it. In other words, it was lasting longer. And they had more leads on me than what they had before. Because I don't think that the girl really placed the amount of leads when I had my lithotripsy. I don't think. Because that's what Tanya told the doctor. She said she even had 2 lithotripsies with the breathing in the 80s, her oxygen level. And he just looked like, oh my goodness. So they were supposed to get that right away, the EKG, but they didn't get that until late that night. And I would imagine by that time that it was probably around 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And she came in, and it lasted for 25 minutes. And she had to push on my stomach so hard, right over that hernia that I have, until, oh my goodness, it did not feel well. I mean, it did not, it was horrible, because it really hurt over top of that hernia. And I don't know if she was checking just for the EKG, or if she also could have been checking to see if that aorta that went down through there was in good condition. So I really hope that she was checking that, or see, I just pronounced it. I know how to pronounce it. I have forgotten what you call it, and I just pronounced it. But anyway, I'm hoping that is in a good shape, because that's what killed Di, Princess Di. Because when she was in that accident, the trauma of that accident burst hers aorta. That's what I'm trying to say. But she would have bled to death a lot faster than what they said. because you don't last long when those things go. But anyway, that's what I was hoping that they did check. And I really have needed a good EKG, and I have needed a scan on my brain to see if there was anything, but my brain turned out fine. My lungs turned out fine. Every test that they gave me was within the realm of normal, and that pleased me greatly. And I would have been released earlier if it hadn't been for the EKG taking so long. And then, too, they wanted to give me a 6-minute walk up and down the halls to see if they could get that oxygen level brought up. And so the day that they had decided that they were going to allow me to come home, the nurse came in, and they were always, I mean, everyone in that hospital were so sweet. You wouldn't believe how sweet and kind they were to me. And, excuse me, I gotta take a drink of water. But, she came in, and she was talking with us, and she said, I have to get this 6-minute walk in before I can, I'm going back to where I usually look, before I can allow you to go home. And I said, oh, that's fine. I'll be fine. And she said, are you sure you can walk? You're not short-winded or anything? And I said, no, I'm not short-winded at all. And they all seemed to be totally, they didn't know what to think when I could move like I move and walk like I walk and talk like I talk. And I'm always trying to be funny. You know, I laugh. I like to laugh a lot. And I don't like a lot of dreary stuff and things like that because I like to be as happy as I possibly can. And I give people compliments. That's just a part of me that comes normal. And they looked like they were actually, well, a lot of them, several of them, said that they really didn't know how to feel because the people they usually deal with are so mean and so hurtful to them and everything. They can't please them and everything. And I said, well, I said, you won't find me like that. I said, I try to get along with everyone, and I try to make everyone feel comfortable and everything like that. And she said, well, I have noticed that since you have been in here, she said, you, in other words, have been nothing but nice. And you've always been very pleasant to deal with, and you don't have to have things certain ways or anything. And one lady came in, she said, are you getting ready to go home? She said, or should I go ahead and make your bed? And I said, oh, you don't have to make my bed now. I said, we can just wait and see if they're going to let me go home because I really am not sure. And I said, she said, yes. She said, but I'll probably be leaving. And I said, well, if you would happen to leave, I said, I could go ahead and sleep in my bed tonight. I said, it's not that, in other words, drastic that I don't get my bed made one night. And she said, yeah, but she said, I need to get it made. And I said, well, I understand by the rules and things like that. I said, but have you, she said, but a lot of people have to have their beds made, and it has to be so-so. And I said, well, I always heard that Jacqueline Kennedy took a nap twice a day. And every time she took a nap, she had to have her linens changed. And I said, I'm just not like that. I said, I don't stick to rules like that. And I said, so you don't have to worry about me causing any trouble. And she just sort of looked at me, and she said, well, a lot of people are. And I said, well, I said, that's not me. And I said, if you want to wait and see if I'm going to be discharged. And she said, I think I'm just going to go ahead and make it and get it over with. And I said, well, that's fine, too. So she went ahead and made the bed, and I was sitting up at the time. And I was glad to be out of the bed, in fact. And so the nurse came in, and she said, it was probably about 3 hours later, and they had me on a cardiac diet, and no sugar. I'm not sugar, no salt. And they would tickle me, though. They would bring me all of this food that was good for me, and they'd bring me a cup of pudding when I have hypoglycemia. And so it didn't bother me, though. I ate it, and it didn't bother me. And so she was just, the nurse came in, and she had the wheelchair with her. And it was, by this time, it was probably around, I'm going to say, 4:30 or something like that. Later than that, probably. I can't really remember. I think I came home in the dark. It's horrible, but I can't remember. And so she said, if we can get this 6-minute walk in, and you can do it with your oxygen level in the 90s, you can go home. And I said, oh, well, we will try for that. So we went out and started walking down the hall, and guess what happened? There was a fire alarm went off, and it wasn't just a drill. It was a real fire in the hospital. Someone in the pulmonary section, their locker had caught on fire, and they had closed the hospital down. So we had to stay very close to my room, but we could still continue. They closed all those floors off and everything, and closed my section off. But I could still walk because ours was okay. So I continued walking the 6 minutes and did fine, and my oxygen level had started to come up, and it was running in the 90s then. And I don't know what happened. Well, they put me on oxygen the minute I went in the hospital, though, so that's probably what was helping the oxygen level, because they had me on oxygen the whole time I was there. And he thought he was going to have to send me home on oxygen. But I had gotten it up to, I think it was 93 when I did the walk. So they didn't have to send me home on oxygen. And I told them about having a YouTube channel. And they were all just thrilled to death, thinking that I was, interested enough and still enthusiastic enough that I would be interested in doing something like that at my age. And the doctor, the first time that they have a hospitalist, they call them now. Used to be your own private doctor came to the hospital to see you. But as what I can understand, it's no longer like that. They have a doctor that takes care of either one floor or one section or something, or what I guess maybe would be your problem or something. Anyway, they called them hospitalist, and he came in and told me that he was my doctor, and he was wanting to. They had given me a blood pressure pill when I was in the ER that night that had finally taken my blood pressure down like it was supposed to be. And I was taking mine, and they were doing nothing, absolutely nothing. And I had told my primary care doctor that I thought that my blood pressure pills should be changed, that the ones I was on was not controlling my blood pressure when it would get up. And she said, well, you should just go ahead and take 2 a day. And I said, but I really don't need them, because a lot of times, most of the time, in fact, my blood pressure runs around 117 to 120 over 65, and that's good blood pressure. And so she just looked at me when I said that. And so he came in, he introduced himself, and he was talking with me and my son, because Tanya had gone home to go to sleep. And because she was dead on her feet, she was exhausted. And so my son and my granddaughter stayed with me. And he was keeping up with the doctors, don't you think he wasn't? And so the doctor came in, and he started shaking my hand, and he introduced himself, and we started talking about my blood pressure pills. And he said he was going to put me on some kind of a blood pressure pill. Well, it wasn't the one they gave me downstairs. And I said, well, would it be okay for me to take the one that they gave me downstairs? I said, because it isn't too strong, and I know that because I've been through it now, but it took my blood pressure down. And he started telling me something else, and I said, yes, but next month is my birthday, and I told him how old I was going to be. And he looked at me like, you got to be kidding me. He started dying laughing. I mean, he was laughing very hard. He said, he put his hand out, and he started shaking my hand, and he said, honey, you can have anything you want. And my son, he was just sitting over there, and he was just grinning from ear to ear because he could see how startled the guy was after he heard my age, that I was going to have my birthday next month, and I told him how old I was going to be. And he said, I thought you were about 62. And he said, that's why I was going to give you a rough time about your blood pressure medicine. And I said, no, I'm not. And he said, honey, you can have anything you want. So he gave me the blood pressure medication that I wanted. And I think he thinks, well, it is doing what it's doing. But they put me on 2 types of medicine. My blood pressure medication, they changed that. And then they put me on some kind of a pill that does something with my heart. That it causes my heart to, well, if you know anything about beta blockers, I really am very new to them right now because that's what it is. It's a beta blocker. And it does something that causes my heart to change something with my blood pressure pill for some reason. Somehow or other it goes. And I've got a thing over here supposed to be telling me how long I've been talking, and I didn't turn it on. So that's a good thing too. So now I don't know how long I've been talking. But anyway, so that's what they're doing with me. That's the 2 things that they have me with. And I go back to see my doctor this week. And I am still really super weak from all of the testing. And last night I woke up and I was having that flushed, hot, sun drenched, you might say. It feels like the awfulest sunburn ever was. Feeling again, but it didn't get up. And I know it was that thing that they're giving me with my heart to make. It's for the oxygen, I think, too. It just does a lot of things. That one thing does a lot of things. There's nothing at all wrong with my heart, but they're dealing with taking care of the blood pressure. And when they get that blood pressure taken care of, then and I'm supposed to lose weight, and I am not eating bread now. And I'm trying to cut my carbs way, way down because you wouldn't believe, well, you probably do believe it. I gained 20 pounds over probably about a 3-month period. And I had not eaten sweets for so long where I had that hypoglycemia that I had just starved myself to death wanting sweets because I can't use anything artificial sweetener because if I do, it gives me bladder infections. And so I have to just do completely without sweets. And I dearly love my mother. She could have lived on nothing but sweets, and she had no problem with it. And the rest of my family didn't. Well, one brother did, but the rest of them, they were fine. But I don't know. I just ate so many sweets and bread. You can give me bread and sweets, and I can probably go across the desert and never miss the other food. if my blood sugar will stay normal. But I was having so much trouble with my blood sugar there for a good long while that I wouldn't be able to eat much sweets. But I think that's why I had the bladder infection, because Tanya got me a pie from, the place with the rockers. Sits out on the front porches. Can't think of the name of it right now. But Cracker Barrel. She bought me an apple pie for Christmas. She didn't buy it, she brought it home to me. And then she got one this Christmas for me. And my tummy is rolling like crazy since I drank that water. But I ate the one for Thanksgiving. I ate some of it. In fact, no, it was a pumpkin pie. And then I ate some of the other. And I think that the artificial sweetener started giving me the bladder infection, because I remembered that years ago when I would use the artificial sweetener I would drink the drinks that had that in there and everything. I kept a bladder infection a lot of times, and I stopped drinking all that, and I stopped having the bladder infections. So if you're having a lot of bladder infections, you might want to just go off of your artificial sweetener for maybe a month or 2 months and see how it's doing. Because I hadn't had a bladder infection for probably 12 years or more. Not that long, probably about 10. And then when I got the artificial sweetened apple pie, I started getting that again. So I'm not going to be able to eat any artificially sweetened foods. But I did want to let you all know that I am just about as mean as ever. And I'm just teasing about that. But I am able to get back on here. And as you can see, my Christmas is still with me. It's still right there. And my Christmas tree is still standing over there with the ornaments on it. And my mantle is still, it still has all the Christmas on it. And my stocking holders and my stockings. Everything is just the way you saw it from my house, my home tour. And I have just been enjoying that, because I didn't get it put up until the day before Christmas. And then it wasn't that long until I got sick. So I told Tanya, I said, I'm not going to worry about it. I'm going to enjoy it until I get ready to take it down, and then I'll take it down. If I can remember to keep looking at that one little tiny hole right there. But I have been watching all of your videos, and you guys are just moving right along, and you're making all of these beautiful things, and you're doing all these things, and just making me so envious. And I'm not supposed to be envious, but I'm not really envious. I'm happy that you're able to do them. And I'm happy that all of you are getting your subscribers up like you want them. And it seems like people are really enjoying watching the videos that are being made. And that's good for everyone that has a YouTube channel. And I wish you all well, and I wish you all the luck and health most of all. That's the one thing that is most important, and you soon find it out when you've been through what I've been through. Since I've been talking to you guys, I could feel my cheeks getting hot and everything through here. And it's where my blood pressure is trying to go up. And I don't know why. Well, the weight, extra weight, that could be causing me to have the blood pressure going up too. And as soon as I can get rid of a bunch of this weight, I might be able to get that blood pressure back down again. Because I just had an EKG on a treadmill where they put you to the monitors and everything, hook you up. it was about 5 years ago I had mine. And I didn't think that I would make it through it. Tanya didn't think that I would make it through it. I don't think anyone, or in fact, I don't think the doctor thought that I would make it through it. But she ordered the full-blown out. The only thing was I couldn't have the dye that you have to use with it because I'm allergic to the dye. And I want you to know they had that treadmill elevated as high up as they could elevate it. It was about a 45-degree angle. It was as high as it would go. And they had it on as high speed as it would go. And I was keeping up with that thing, and they had their hands flat on my back here, trying to keep me from falling off of the treadmill as I was walking to stay on it and holding on to the handles. And I passed that thing with flying colors. And they said, okay, said, you can slow down. And when I started slowing down, your heart is supposed to come down really quite quickly, you know, after you exercise. It's not supposed to languish around and beat hard for a long time. It's supposed to come down normally and pretty quickly. That's what mine did. And when they told me that there was nothing wrong with my heart, that really thrilled me. And then, of course, going through with Bob like I did with the lungs, the malignancy in his lungs, and they told me that my lungs were fine, no spots, nothing. That really thrilled me. And I'd been really needing a very, very good checkup for a long time. But I just didn't want to go in and get it. But now I'm glad it's over with, and I'm hoping to be able to get rid. I've noticed a lot of you girls, you girls are on your weight diet, and that is really good. And you're losing, and you're looking very nice, and. Suzanne, I'm surprised. I was shocked the other day when I saw you. I hadn't seen you since you were on your trip. And when I saw you with that face, it was, oh my goodness, you can tell that you have lost so much weight through your face and your neck and your shoulders and everything, just like me. I'm hoping to look like that. And I'd love to know what kind of diet you're on. And if any of you are on really good diets, of course, I'm on that cardiac diet, like I'm saying, but I think so far, everything I've gotten is just salt-free. They don't want me having salt. And they didn't give me bread in the hospital. But other than that, I seem to be doing pretty well. But I better get off here because I know I've been on here for a long time. But I'm so thrilled to be able, just like I was the last video I made, I'm so happy to be able to talk to you guys because I do miss you. And when you haven't been able to make your videos for a while, if it ever happens to you, you'll realize how much you do miss just talking to you. Even though you're not right here with me, you feel like you're sitting right here in the room with me, and I'm talking with all of you girls and guys that I talk with all the time. And I'm hoping to get back to making my videos very soon. I should be able to put a video up this week. I'm still, like I said, just a little bit weak and everything, but if I don't have any more nights like I had last night, I'll be doing much better. But I'm still able to put up videos, so I'm going to get up and put up my videos. Good Lord's will. Can't do a thing without the good Lord. And thank you all, every one of you that prayed your prayers for me. I really, really, really appreciate it. And I appreciate it so much. And I had just answered your comments the night that I answered those comments is the night that I got sick. And it took me, I think, about 5 hours to answer those comments. And I'm going to have to learn how to talk into my phone and let the phone do the talking so that I don't have to sit there and peck it out with my stylus on my phone. And but I really do miss you guys, and I wish that we all lived close enough to where we could visit and have good times, and like one of the ladies said, and have some tea together because that's one thing I'm still on is my tea. And if any of you have inflammatory problems, please get on green tea with mint and give it a time, give it a chance, give it at least 2 months before you form a conclusion about it, because it took the soreness out of my bowels. And I have diverticulosis until I cannot eat red meat. I cannot eat any kind of red meat. Hamburgers, steak, I don't care what it is. I can't eat it. I haven't eaten it for probably about 12 to 15 years because I was not eating it when Bob was living. And I can't have fried foods, no fried foods. I have had just a few pieces of chicken fried probably about 4 months ago because they didn't have any grilled, because I eat grilled chicken all the time. And I eat chicken, fish, and I can have shrimp, and I can have lobster, and things like that. But I can't eat pork chops, no pork, no ham, nothing. And I was in the not in the hospital, but going to the hospital in the ER about every, I'm going to say, well, maybe it's not the hospital, but I was going to urgent care, getting prescriptions for my diverticulosis about every 6 to 7 months before I found my green tea. And then one morning I just woke up and I was craving green tea. And it seems like that I'm strange like that. I sort of get a tendency that I start craving something and it's something that I really truly need. My body's telling me what to do. So I told Tanya, I said, I'm going to get some green tea. I said, I really don't like it, but I said, I've been craving it for some reason. And so when I went to the store, I saw the Bigelow green tea, and they had it with mint and without mint. And I always loved mint, so I got the mint with it. And brought it home, and I started drinking it. And if you're like me, if you're having any pain or anything like that, once you've had it for so long, you get used to that, and you sort of ignore it. That's the way I am, at least. I guess that's why I can laugh the way I do, because I ignore a lot of my pain. But I started drinking that for about, I'm going to say, 6 weeks to 2 months. And lo and behold, one day I noticed that, hey, there's something different. I don't know what's going on, but there's something different about the way I'm feeling. My side is not as sore, because I could just stand with my stomach against the cabinet in the kitchen, and it would hurt that side. That's how tender that place was. And if I'd go to the doctor, I'd keep my hand over that one place where that pocket was. And I went to the ER one night, and the doctor was wanting to examine my entire stomach, and I said, you can't examine this side down here on the lower side. She said, I have to examine it. I said, I'm sorry, you can't do it. I said, it's too sore. I said, that is inflamed, and I know it is. And I said, that's where I have a pocket in there. And I said, I can't let you do that. And she said, then I'll just give you a CAT scan, because she thought I was just being persnickety, but I wasn't. I was just flat telling her the truth. And I said, okay, go ahead and give me the CAT scan. I'll take the CAT scan. So she took me back, had me taken back and gave me a CAT scan. And when she came back, she said, thank you so much for not letting me push on your side. She said, you have an abscess there. See? She thought I was just being smart alecky, not wanting to let her do something. It wasn't that at all. I was just too sore. Well, after I began drinking the green tea and mint, the abscess went away, and I wasn't that sore. I'm still a little bit sore there, tender, but nothing like I was before. And I'm not on the antibiotics. If I go on antibiotics once a year, it's rare since I got on the green tea. But I went off of it one time. I went in and I was just getting tired because I really don't care for the green tea anyway. And but I always liked mint when I was little, growing up. And I looked in my pantry and I saw that Earl Grey, Bigelow Earl Grey, and I love it. And I thought, well, I'm going to change and drink some Earl Grey for a while. So I was used to the mint by this time and the green tea. So I had gotten so used to not being sore that I wasn't even thinking about it. So I pulled the Earl Grey out and I fixed it. Oh, it tasted so good because I love Earl Grey. And I drank that. I drank it for about a week. And I noticed I started getting really sore, and I thought, now what in the world is causing my side to get sore? And it was in the morning time, and I was on my way to the pantry. I opened that pantry door, and I looked at that Earl Grey, and it was sitting there, and my green tea with the mint was right beside it. And I thought, you have not been drinking your green tea with mint. And I thought, well, we'll take care of that. So I pulled out my green tea, and I've been on it ever since. So I try to tell everyone I come in contact with, if you have a lot of inflammation, Tanya's drinking it now, and she says she's noticing a difference in the way she feels. And so if you have inflammation in your body anywhere, I don't care where it is, you drink that green tea and give it time to do something. Don't just take it for a week and think it's not doing you any good. Because it took me probably about, I'm going to say, 4 or 5 weeks to 6 to really know that there was a difference, to realize, because it was so easy that I didn't notice when it first started. It just started, I guess, getting a little bit less tender all the time. But now I drink it every day to the world. So try it if you are having any of that. And if you're having, I've heard some of you girls who are having respiratory problems, and I used to have acute bronchitis. And if I climbed stairs, or we had some mountains where we lived before we moved down here, and we'd go out and climb up on the mountains and things like that, I would feel like my lungs had been scorched inside, that they were just burning. And I had acute bronchitis is what it was. And they said I would have it the rest of my life. Well, I just got ready to live with it the rest of my life and wheeze. I sounded like a cat meowing because I would wheeze so badly. And at night. And so someone told me that if you would get a Chihuahua, a little Chihuahua dog, that the Chihuahua takes anyone's bronchitis. If they have bronchitis, they will take that away from them. And I really didn't pay that much attention to it, but my son had been wanting a dog, and I never did care for animals inside the house. And but he'd been wanting a dog for a good while, so I thought, well, I really should let him have a dog. So we went to look for dogs. And we went to this one house, and they had several little Chihuahuas. And this one little one was the runt of the litter. And Chris fell in love with it. He just fell in love with the little one that the others were mistreating and everything. So he took it up on his lap, and it was just huddling up as close to him as could be and just shaking. You know how they shake. And he fell in love with that dog. So he said, Mom, he said, this is what I want. And I said, you sure? Because there was one down there just flipping around all over the place, and I mean, he was just running. And he said, no, said, I like this one. Said, it's not being cared for. Excuse me. And I said, okay, if that's one you want, that's what we'll get. So I bought him that dog, brought it home, didn't pay any attention, had forgotten about the bronchitis part, with the dog. And we had the dog, I'm not sure because I don't even know when it left, but after we got that dog and had it home for, I would say maybe 4 months or something like that. Maybe not that long. I don't know how long it was, but I know I was even on breathing pills. I had bronchitis so bad. And I noticed one night I'm not having any wheezing when I breathe. And I started talking with Tanya about it, and she said, Mom, she said it may be our little dog, her name was Snuggles. It may be Snuggles because they say that a Chihuahua will take bronchitis if you have it. And you couldn't hear her gurgling or anything. She was fine, but they must just absorb it into their body. I don't know. Anyway, mine left and I never had it again, and I still haven't had it until here about the last, I'm going to say 4 months or so. And that has been back in the late 80s and early 90s. I got her in the late 80s. And that's been that amount of years that I have not had any bronchitis whatsoever. But I think I'm beginning to develop a little bit now where we live here because I just don't, there's so much traffic here that the air is just not as clean and fresh as what you would like for it to be. I mean, it's clean air, but there's just so many people. There's so many people here that there's cars on the road all the time and everything. And I think that's putting a lot of pollution in the air and everything. It's causing me to do that, and then gaining the weight too. It's going to cause me to go back to doing things I shouldn't. But anyway, I've given you all your medical advice you need. My husband told me, he said, Johnny said you're going to get in trouble. What was it he called it? Some way or other, he said, oh, practicing without a license, practicing medicine without a license. Because my family, my sisters, and my brothers used to call me all the time. What do you think I should do about this? Because I had a lot of problems when I was younger, and but they weren't that serious. It was just a nuisance things. But I knew a lot of things going on and everything, so I could tell them what to do. And they would call, what should I do for this, and what should I do for that? And I'd tell them, go on. And he would tickle me. He would laugh, and he'd say, you're going to get in trouble. You're practicing medicine without a license. And I got really tickled. But I have jammered on here for a long, long time, and I keep going back to my right again with, it's hard to look at those little holes there. There's nothing to look back at, and I wish that they had it to where we had something that we could look at when we're doing that. But anyway, I'm going to get off here, and thank you all for watching, and thank you for your prayers again, and thank you for being so loyal to me. My goodness sakes, I couldn't ask for any people to be any more loyal. And I hope that you all have a blessed, blessed, blessed new year, and a healthy, healthy, healthy new year. And that you get anything that, like I said the other night, I said, hope that this is the year that you will remember against all the other years that you've ever had, that you will think that this is the best year you've ever had. So I'm going to get off of here and go get in my PJs and get something to eat, because I've only eaten one little meal today. And turn you all on, because I'm missing you guys, seeing what you're doing, and you are just making more videos. And I'll be watching you when you're making these, good Lord's will. So I'll talk with you guys later, and I should be putting a video up maybe tomorrow or the next day. And get that Tanya, she is a good one. She's a good one. And so I have a marvelous family. I really do have a marvelous family. The good Lord has blessed me greatly. But I'll talk with you guys later. and you take care. And as I've always said, I love you, and more importantly, God loves you, and that is the most important thing in this world, that God loves us. So don't forget that. Talk with you later. Bye-bye.